Hi there, it's Michelle from CNC Designs. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in New Zealand, and I wanted to show you the Thanks a Bunch stamp set that's a freebie with celebration in January and February from Stampin' Up! I'm going to show you a card and made 3 different ways using this stamp set, just by changing a few of the elements. So you can change it from a simple card all the way up to a more avid, complicated card for those that like to add extras to their stamping. So with this stamp set, as I said, it's free. It's called Thanks a Bunch, and it's got images that can be carrots. You can make other things with them, which I'll show you some samples later on about the other ways to use some of the stamps in there. So here's the first fairly simple stamping card. With this one, I used the blends to give me a brown, like dirt looking base, and I blended the top with Balmy blue to give me what looks like sky. So to do that, I used the Stampin' Up! Masking paper. So I think I used about half of a sheet there, and as you can see here, I then just cut a wavy bit in it. And so for the wavy bit, then I simply, let me just peel that off. Nice thing with the masking paper is it's got one side that's flat that you can stamp on and do things with, and the other side is sticky, so you can use that for whatever you want. So what I did for this is I just used a standard basic white thick cardstock and cut the wave, pop the wavy bit up here at the top, and then use my blending brush. So we've got our standard blending brushes here, and we've got in the new mini catalog, we have the mini blending brushes. We also have this fabulous brush holder. It's hard to hold it up that way, but it's got room to hold 9 brushes. When you buy the blending brushes, you buy them in sets of 3, so you can get a set of 3 big ones or a set of 3 mini ones. And once you're finished with them, you can rinse them out, and if you rinse them soon enough, they come back to almost new. So this one I used with the brown, and there's not a lot of color left in it. If you leave them or use them a lot, they do eventually stain the color, but it dries on there so it doesn't come off. So you can see, even though that looks blue, there's no ink coming off on me. So put the masking over part of your card, and then I just blended it with the Crumb cake ink and just blended all around the base of the card to get the color I like. And then I used the little line and the little, looks like dirt, little dot stamps around the base to give it the look of dirt. Then the next step I did was peel that off. And that's the nice thing with the masking paper. It's not really sticky, so you can peel it off. And a tip, if you're going to do one that you're going to use over a few times, bend one corner down so you've got something to peel up easily. Also, if you do it wider than the card, it helps to hold the card in place. So when I stick it down, this side here is helping to keep the card in place, so when I'm blending, it doesn't move on me. And then I took the opposite side, so the opposite curve there, and used that on the base, lined it up where I've already blended the top with Balmy blue, and then while I still had that on there, I stamped my carrots, so the bottom of the carrots wouldn't go onto the card. So the carrots come regular carrots, and they also have this little bit that can give you some depth and different color to the carrot. So I did the base in pumpkin pie, and then I did the little accent side in Calypso Coral. And then I used Garden Green with the stamp that does the grassy, not grassy, the green part at the top of the carrot. So with that, I stamped it full and then immediately stamped again without re-inking. So that's what gave me the different shades here. So I've got some dark and some lighter colors there. When you stamp that, these are photopolymer, so they are see-through. And the benefit there is when you stamp, you can actually look at where you're stamping. So try to match it up with the top of the carrot. If you're having difficulty with that, then just use some masking paper, cover up the top of your carrot, and then when you stamp it, you don't have to worry about if you go too far down, it's not going to put the green where you don't want it to be. And I finished off with the words, everything's coming up carrots. So that's basically the simple stamping card. So a bit of blending and then stamping, and that's your simple stamping card. So to step that up, what I did next is I started with my basic white cardstock. So I did a layer. So this layer is slightly smaller than the front of the card. So I did it at 10 centimeters by 14.3 centimeters. So slightly smaller than the card. And the next card I did, I decided to have a card base of crumb cake. So I stepped it up with the card base of crumb cake. So you want 2 of the basic white pieces, 1 for the inside. And then I stamped the little carrots and the words thanks a bunch. And again with the little carrots, so I stamped the little greenery in full strength and then just stamped it twice more without re-inking, and it gives me that shaded look of the greenery. So that's the little bunch of carrots there with that little green top there. And this set's quite nice because it has various words that are separate, and then you can mix them up how you want. So for this one, I put the thanks in the crumb cake and then the words a bunch in the pumpkin pie. So for the front, I did the same as I did with my original card. I masked off a bit of the bottom, sponged it with crumb cake. This one I didn't sponge as hard, so that's why it looks a lighter color. It's the same color, I just didn't use as much ink. Stamped it with the little lines and the little dirt bits. Not sponge, blended. We used to have the sponges. We use the blending brushes now. Blended the top in the Balmy blue. And again, like this one, I didn't blend it as much, so it looks lighter. Same color, it just depends on how much you blend it, so that looks darker. And then, after I did that, before I stamped anything else, I used a die to cut out the shape. So I used the Deckled rectangle dies. There's lots of sizes there. And I used the largest size there. So once I got this all blended, I then die cut the shape there to give me this big section here. I also have a piece of pumpkin pie in the background, which is the same size as the basic white that I started out with. So that's 10 centimeters by 14.3. So I had that for a layer in the background, and around the edges, I used Versamark. Hopefully you can see that. And I stamped the little tiny greenery for the small carrots. So I just used Versamark and stamped around the edges of the pumpkin pie, and it just gives a little bit of a watermark look, so you can see it, but it's not actually colored ink. It's just making the color cardstock slightly darker. So I did that, die cut my sponged piece here. Then after I die cut that, I did the same method here, masked up the bottom, stamped my 3 carrots and the greenery, put a bit of twine around the base there, and this time I did the words on a separate piece of cardstock, and I heat embossed them in black, and then I fussy cut around them to give me that look. So basically it's got all the same elements, but it's just changed up a little bit. Now the bling that I've got on here is from the Elegant Faceted Gems. And there's 3 different colors here. So for this one, I used the clear ones. And because I put them on the brown, they almost look like they're brown, but it just gives you a bit of a gem look. This one, I used the center one, which doesn't actually tell you what the colors are on the set, but they're kind of a orangey color. So here it looks a bit more brown there, but then there it keeps more of the orange color. And the last card, I used the white ones, which I'll show you in a minute. So there's the simple stamping. There's the casual crafter, where you added a few more elements and some die cutting and embossing, heat embossing, and layers. So same card, but the inside is the crumb cake. So I stepped it up a bit further. This time I used crumb cake again. I made the card open this direction. Same size card, just depends on how you cut your main cardstock. So it opens this direction. Again, I have the inside the same size, 10 by 14.3. This time I went with the Love You a bunch instead of the Thanks a bunch. And I stamped the larger carrot, the middle size carrot, the medium carrot. And I did the same technique where I stamped it full strength and then just stamped 2 more times to give me the faded effect, so it's a different color. This one, I did use the large greenery, so it's this stamp here, but I didn't want the stem. So there's 2 ways you can do it. You can either cover up with your masking paper or just a piece of scrap paper. So I could just cover the base up with a bit of scrap paper, or I could use masking paper or a Post-it note to stamp the greenery on there. Or I simply, when I ink it up, I just don't ink up the bottom part of the greenery. I only ink up the top and then line it up how I want. So that's how I did the inside. So stepped up the inside slightly, and then the outside I stepped up even more. So again, I started with my basic white, 10 by 14.3 for the layer on the front. Did the same thing with the sponging, but this one, I just sponged it all in Balmy Blue. I didn't sponge any of the crumb cake because for this card, I did something different on the bottom. So on the bottom here, I took a piece of crumb cake and I made sure it was the same width, so 10 centimeters wide. Doesn't really matter about the height. And what you do is you tear it. So I'm tearing this away. And you just tear it into the segment or the shape that you want. And I find holding it closer gives you a better, cleaner rip on it, a tear. And so it gives you that roughened top. And if you turn it round, you now have 2 layers of soil. So I stamped this with the same stamps I did with the other ones, with the little dots and the little lines. But then I took my blending brush and I blended this with crumb cake. So I gave it a bit more depth and darkness, so you can see the difference between the plain crumb cake. And that also helps to get a bit of color into the edges of the soil. So I did that, and I stamped the background. Now this time, because the background is going to be covered up with the crumb cake, I could go ahead and stamp my carrots straight onto the background. Didn't have to worry about the bottom, because the bottom of them is being covered up with that piece there. So stamp the 3 carrots in the background, same as I did with all the other cards. Then I covered it up with the crumb cake. Now, see, that doesn't give a lot of soil, but if I move it up slightly and then put the other layer down below, you have more soil at the bottom, basically. The second piece I popped up on some dimensionals because I added 2 carrots. So I will show you how I did that, just using a scrap piece that's wide enough for the carrots, is stamp them. And so I will show you how to stamp the carrots. I'm just looking for a bit of scrap paper for the background. Just a second. Okay, so in case it goes off the page. So with the carrot, there's 2 ways to stamp it. You can either stamp the carrot first and then the detail second, which you need to line up. But I find it's easier to do the detail first and then the carrot over there because you can line it up better. So I'm going to do Calypso Coral, which is the darker color with the detail. And keep it in mind, I want to have the stem up the top. So since the carrots aren't going to stick out the whole way, the easier option is to put the stem on first. Don't know if they're called stems. I guess sort of stems. You know, the green part at the top of the carrot. The greenery. So I'm going to stamp that first, just to give me an idea of where I want my carrot to be. Now that's actually going to give me a very short carrot if I do it that long. So I might clean this off and do it slightly shorter. Just a moment. So if you don't want as much greenery, when you ink it up, just don't ink up the whole thing. So see, I've only inked up part of it. So only part of it is green. So I think I will do that. I will start out and do there, and then I'm going to stamp off again off to the side, and another one off to the side. So that gives me the top of my carrot to start with. Let me get the green out of the way, and then now we're going to do the base of the carrot, and we're going to do it in the darker Calypso Coral. And so I just want the top of that to be touching round about where I did my green. And it doesn't matter that it's going off the edge, because on the final card you're not going to see the bottom of it anyway. So that gives me a nice kind of dark orange color. And then I'm going to use Pumpkin Pie for the rest of it. So now when I line it up, you can actually see through to see where you're going to line it up. So I'm going to look through there and try to get the detail right to the edge. Keep in mind, when you look through there, don't just look at the top, look at the bottom, because you might line up the top and then turn the bottom to the side, and the detail will be in the wrong place at the bottom. So that's kind of close. I missed it slightly at the top. But what I find with this, you can simply come in again. I'll stamp off so it's not quite so dark, and you can just stamp again to cover up the part that you might have missed. I didn't do it very well. Here, let's try again. Yeah, so now I've just added a bit more orange there. So you can just play around with this one. It's a great set. Photopolymer sets are really good because you can line things up and do layers. That's what they're meant for, and that's why they are photopolymer. You might, if you've seen the newest mini catalog from Stampin' Up, there's a few products in there that give you the choice of purchasing the photopolymer, which is the clear ones, or the cling, which are the red rubber stamps that you can't see through. So when you order those products, I'll look at the catalog in a minute and see if I can show you which ones. You need to decide which style you want. But normally, if it's something that has layers, it's going to be in the photopolymer, which is the see-through version of the stamp. So see, we got that. And then what I did is I just fussy cut around that image and then popped it up on some dimensionals down there. After I fussy cut it, or actually before I fussy cut it, I thought that when I did my first one, I thought it was just too white with the greenery there on the background that I had. So what I did is I just came in and took my blending brush and just did a bit of blending around the top, just because the rest of it's not going to be seen much. So just a bit of blending around the top to give it some of the blue. And then when I fussy cut it, I ended up having the same shade as the background image. So do that before you fussy cut it. I know that because the first one I did afterwards and it got bent slightly, and the second one I did before. So that's the difference between the two. So then I fussy cut that, popped it up on dimensionals, and just slipped the ends down there. So you can see, you're not going to see the entire carrot. The other thing I did to step up this card was I heat embossed the word separately in black, cut those out separately, and then I stamped the word carrot and heat embossed it in clear, which I'm not sure if you could see. So stamped the word carrot in orange and heat embossed in clear, and then popped that one up. So that shows you 3 different ways, 3 cards that are the same, but made 3 different ways, so you could step them up. So we got the basic simple stamping card, one that's for the more casual crafter, so you can step it up a bit with a bit of die cutting and heat embossing and adding a bit of ribbon. And then the one for the more avid crafter, where we've added ribbon. That ribbon there, by the way, is the Balmy blue. Balmy blue and white, so it has a bit of blue and white on the ribbon. So there I added the ribbon down there. I added some dimensionals, popped things up so you get a couple different layers. And even on the inside, I went from just a simple carrot to words done in 2 different colors and a layer, and another layer with more colors and bigger. So hopefully you like that. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Make sure you subscribe for more videos. If you are interested in any of these products, this is only for a limited time. End of February, you won't be able to get that stamp set. You can only get it free with a qualifying order. So talk to your demonstrator, or if you're in New Zealand and don't already have a demonstrator, you can go to my website, michellekritchley.stampinup.net, to contact me. In New Zealand, a qualifying order is $110. Other countries have different prices because of the exchange rate. So if you're interested in that, I said I was going to show you a few other things. So that detailed stamp, let me just clean them before I accidentally get ink everywhere. The detail one, this detail stamp here for the carrot, that one there. When I saw that, I thought, that looks like grass if you turn it sideways. So the first time I actually used that was on this card, which I did a video about making this sliding card. So if you want to do this, look back at my previous videos. I think that was in January, early January. So that's that same stamp. So don't know if you can see it. That stamp was stamped multiple times in garden green on here to make it look like grass. And then I added a few of the little flowers there. So you can use your stamps for lots of different things. I also think it kind of looks like, especially this one here, that almost looks like a wave or the heartbeat, you know, or something that's telling you the levels of things, music levels maybe, you know, when you're doing the machine and it's showing the different levels that it goes up. So look at your stamps a different way to find different ways to do things. There's been some really good ideas online stamping this direction and turning them into trees. So stamping them in green and they just look like interesting trees. Another thing I did is I stamped the set of 3 carrots, and then I just fussy cut them into teeny tiny carrots to make this one. And this uses another free item. By the way, that's the free item with the owls, which is on the first page of your celebration catalog. And then this is using the free paper on page 8, the Day at the Farm paper. So this is the paper that I used, and I just cut a section out. As you can see, I cut a curved section out there. So there's these sections that look like there's things growing in the fields. So I took a section there that had the little grass, little bits growing out, and then I stuck the little carrots there, added the rabbit from the Rain or Shine set, and then again stamped up the words. This background paper is from the Rain or Shine specialty DSP, so I put that back there so you'd have the clouds already, and then the rabbit is eating the little carrot. So again, I fussy cut a little bit of the greenery there and put that. So there's different ways you can use this stamp set. I hope you enjoy that. And thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.